country. I wanted to follow up. Senator Inhofe had asked you, General Mattis, about your professional opinion on whether current diplomatic and economic efforts will stop Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons capability. And I believe you said no. So if that is the case, right now, as I understand it, the economic sanctions that we have imposed on Iran are having a very significant negative impact on their economy and their currency, correct?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
So if current diplomatic and economic sanctions will not stop them, in your opinion, from obtaining nuclear weapons capability, what do you think that they are doing now with negotiations? Are they trying to delay us again and continuing to enrich?
Ma'am, just to be clear, I fully support the economic sanctions. I fully support the diplomatic isolation and accruing the international community's support to try to stop this. I believe they are trying to buy time with the negotiations, but that should not be in any way construed as we should not try to negotiate. I still support the direction we're taking. I'm paid to take a rather dim view of the Iranians, frankly.
Well, it's understandable why you would be taking a dim view, how you describe their activities around the world in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Sudan, Gaza, Lebanon, Yemen. I dare say that we can't think of another country that is doing more damage in terms of terrorism around the world and hurting our interests and those of our allies. Would you agree?
I would agree strongly with what you just said, ma'am.
So if we are in a position where, what is their history, by the way, in terms of using negotiations to delay and continuing to enrich? Do they have a history of doing that?
They have a history of denial and deceit, ma'am.
So in the recent P5+1 negotiations, the group offered basically that we would back off on some of the sanctions if they agreed to keep enrichment levels at 20%. And Iran, as I understand it, we were not able to come to an agreement there. Is that right, General Mattis?
I believe they agreed to meet again, Senator, but again, I think this is negotiations. I mean, there's nothing final about it. This is the give and take.
Well, here's our problem. If they have a history of using negotiations as a dilatory tactic while they're continuing to enrich and march toward nuclear weapons, and we know how dangerous that they are, how do we stop this pattern to make sure that they know that we are serious, that we will not accept them having a nuclear weapon?
Senator, I think that the more that we can accommodate a larger coalition against them, I believe that in some ways we have to recognize Iran's legitimate security interests so they are not put in a position to use illegitimate means, such as we're observing, to address their legitimate security interests. And I think that we continue everything we're doing right now, but as the President has said, he's taken no option off the table, and my role is to provide him military options.
How important is it that we stop Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon?
I would just echo the President's words. The Commander-in-Chief has said it's unacceptable, and I believe it's absolutely important.
In your view, based on your position on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of danger to the world and to our country, where would you put them obtaining a nuclear weapon, 10 being the highest danger?
Well, ma'am, it would be dangerous because it would enable Iran to continue to act like a revolutionary cause vice a responsible country, and they would sense fewer limitations and more invulnerability to conducting the kind of attacks that killed Israeli tourists in Bulgaria, provide man-pads to Yemen, which they were just caught at. I believe we would see more of this irresponsible, reckless behavior.
Given the fact that they use negotiations to delay and continuing to enrich, why wouldn't we consider just cutting off negotiations and saying, here's the bottom line, Iran, otherwise we're going to act? Because I fear that if they continue to use negotiations to delay, that we will be at a point where they have nuclear weapons capability, and then it's too late, is it not, sir?
Well, it would certainly be too late for our stated policy that they are not to achieve a nuclear weapons capability, but I believe negotiations are critical as we build an international consensus against them and sustain that. And I think that at some point they are going to have to confront the unproductive aspects of what they're doing for their own interests.
But one thing I just can't get my hands around here. We have pressed their economy. We have pressed them dramatically. We have negotiated with them in good faith. They have continued to enrich. They have used negotiations as a delay tactic. At some point, you kind of have to get to a position where you say, insanity is the definition of doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result from a regime that obviously continues to flout us and our allies and also to be a danger to the world in terms of their terrorism activities. So that's the thing I worry about, General Mattis. And so how do we address that?
Well, ma'am, as you know, what I do, I provide the Commander-in-Chief military options, working with some very, very strong friends, partners in the region. They are creating in their minds, as a revolutionary cause, a resistance economy. They are trying to raise a sense of martyrdom as a nation. That's a very dangerous type of self-view if they were to get a nuclear weapon. But I don't believe that we should stop negotiations because they do not prevent us from doing other things at the same time. For example, while negotiating, I've requested and received additional forces in the Gulf by the decision of the Secretary of Defense to ensure that we are ready to reassure our friends that we mean business and temper the Iranians' designs.
Well, I thank you very much, General Mattis, and I think we all share the concern, and particularly the Senate. We voted on a resolution saying that containment is not the policy of the United States of America. This has been overwhelming bipartisan issue, and Iran needs to understand that we will not accept them having a nuclear weapon. But I worry that they are using negotiations to delay, and I hope the administration will make sure that they are not able to use those negotiations to further their aims at getting nuclear weapons capability.